Fun. Finally, we have Grace Riza, CEO of Identity Dental, at my podcast, which I think I've been to your podcast a while back,
Been a while.
like 7, 10 years ago, something like that. That's how long you've been doing podcasts.
A long time. Yeah.
Ha- Have you been? How's
Good.
life?
So good. Yeah. All is well.
You're probably one of the top three people that I really wanted to get on my podcast for
Wow.
selfish reasons. Very selfish, because I
I'm
really, really like you. We've been friends for a long time. And I just thought that we need to reconnect and reconnect about our passions towards private offices. And with all the talks and in the industry, I think you and I are staying true to what we believe is the right thing. And so I feel like this is going to be a great podcast. And so without any introductions, people know you. If you don't know, they can look you up and I'll provide the bio. But I really want to frame the conversation today around two questions. The first would be, how did the landscape of marketing advertising has changed for private practices in the last 3 years? I don't want to use the buzzword AI. I just want to look at the framework of the entire landscape with Google changing algorithm and stuff like that. So like all of the stuff on that side. And also, if you would be, if somebody, let's just say you and I opening up a practice today, private practice, we pick our favorite city, we pick how many chairs we want, we got the team, we got the hygienist, what you and I would do for marketing today. Like that brings the meaningful new patient flow right away. So if you don't mind, let's jump into the first question and just your perspective on where we at in marketing and advertising today, what has changed, and how do you look at it?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I want to do is throw you under the bus because for those of you watching, Tiger gave me absolutely no preparation. He didn't tell me what
Zero.
my questions were going to be and told me the questions before. And I thought, oh, AI, I'll talk about that. And then he threw that little spin in there. Well, I don't want to go through AI. So I'm very excited. I love being kept on my toes. And I have some very specific things to share that I think are going to help. So I would say the biggest things that have changed are AI. I'm going to say it anyways because I play by my own rules. And it it had such a massive impact in how we market and what to expect. And I do want to talk about where I'm taking that in dental marketing just a little bit. I don't want to give away everything, but I'll give away enough. So I do want to talk about that. I want to talk about employee mindset because I've seen a shift there in the last few years as more companies go remote and it gets harder to retain and keep people. It's not just in dentistry. Like we all have obstacles in business. And I want to talk about some major changes on Google. Google has stopped allowing certain tools to function. They have stopped being totally competition based with how they price things. They have changed the rules of local service ads have completely changed even just in the last year. And there have been some major changes to what Google requires. There's stronger verification processes, identity processes that's really upsetting to a lot of people. So it's an ever evolving space. There's a great deal of constant change, and it's really fun to have change because for me, it's a reason to innovate. It's a reason and a way for me to get ahead of what everybody else is doing and to just push not just myself and my team, but everybody who's following me and copying what I do. I put pressure on them to evolve as well. So it's a really fun space to be in.
That's awesome. Let's dive in. I can't wait. I took the notes, so I'll keep reminding you. But let's start with the buzzword.
Let's start with the buzzword. Let's start with AI. It's really easy to get content now. It's really easy, so easy that you're going to have a flood of low quality content coming into every market. And by low quality, I mean everybody's going to be saying the same thing. Everything's going to be, all of the AI content right now is very fluffy. It's not concise. It's very, very fluffy, and it has to be fine tuned to be leveraged. So, whereas 3 years ago we were hiring writers, now we're hiring prompt engineers and we're recreating our processes to leverage this technology, but we can't lean on it without the quality control of intelligent, critical thinking human beings. So it's just completely changed even what we hire, who we hire, how we hire. And the quantity of content is going up in general, and the quality is going down. So how do you stand out in this atmosphere? Well, you've got to increase the quality. That's the only way to do it, because everybody can increase the quantity, but how do you increase the quality? And that has to do with prompt engineering, hiring the right people, and fine tuning these tools to work for you. So that's vague. So ask me whatever you want to ask me about that.
Yeah, I want to double click on this very quick. So when you say that content needs to be fine tuned, with the specific example, let's just say I threw something in OpenAI or ChatGPT and it spins off the article for me. How do you see the fine tuning? Do you then go with a prompt engineer and say, remove this, remove that, make it more catchy, make it look more towards younger generation? Or do you take it from there, give it to your copywriters, and they're fine tuning that piece of content? Like, what is it?
So it depends. So in my agency, certain things have certain prompts that have already been tested, and those prompts are in workflows, and those prompts are individualized to the client, to the campaign that we are creating. So the same prompt doesn't work for every client. So it's just basically a refresh of process to fine tune. So it starts with the prompt engineering and testing and making sure those prompts are really good. And then it has to go through quality control as well, where a human reads it and goes, well, is this correct? Is this clear, concise, complete, correct? Is it considerate? Is it the right tone for the brand? So we have this human side that allows us to approve content or refine content, whether it's social media content or blog posts or website content. So there's a place for AI, but you can't just replace the people, or the quality is just going to be bad.
I think it's also unlocking the point where, I think prior AI, people complained that they can't generate a lot of content. They were limited because of the number of hours. I think in the conversation when the AI started, everybody thought that AI will replace humans. I think it's actually, if we're just specifically looking at marketing, it's not replacing, it's just allowing you to do more content, but then you still need the same human beings to just double check everything that the quality goes out on your websites or your social media platforms or anything you do with the content.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. I also think there's a lot to the what I call prompt engineering, which is what's the input. So like I could ask ChatGPT to write me a blog about SEO. I might not agree with 30% of it, but then I could go and I could ask ChatGPT to help me write a blog on behalf of Identity Dental Marketing about SEO, referencing my website and past blogs and considering these 5 points to make. And I actually put the intelligence into it, and then it is more for syntax and refining, but I'm actually putting the concepts into the machine. So I like it for that purpose. But if you have people who don't know the content very well, their output's going to be surfacey garbage. It's not going to have depth, because you can't replace real experience, real knowledge with a tool. So,
Right. The example that you gave us just now, I think would answer my next question. What is the prompt engineering, and the examples of a good prompt engineer, which you just mentioned. And I think anybody who's listening would think that, what's the big deal? I can pay $20 a month to OpenAI and get access to ChatGPT. But I think the tricky part is that prompt engineer. Maybe you can touch on that to explain how do you see it?
So I'll give a really good example that people can take and apply in their practice right now in a way that's going to go, oh, wow, that's a good idea. So
I love
get
that.
a bad review, right? And it's from Nancy, who's been to your practice, and she claims that she was in pain the whole time and you didn't care, and it was traumatic, and she is now afraid of the dentist, and it's all your fault, and blah, blah. Well, first of all, I'm going to try to get that review removed for my clients, because I know how to report it. I know how to work the rules in my client's favor. But let's say we can't get it removed because of some reason. You won't just take that review and drop it into ChatGPT and say, write a response to this review. Your prompt is, write a HIPAA compliant response to this review, not touching on the individual patient's experience, while communicating the values of dental practice name in relationship to always ensuring that every patient is comfortable and receives the highest quality of care. And then you hit enter, right? So there's a big difference between copy, paste, go, and let me tell my robot exactly what I need it to do and give it context. I do that
Wow.
for my clients, and it comes out really, I'd say 90% of what it needs to be. And then I just refine it and send it back. So once you get your prompts identified, you can reuse them for similar situations. But there's always that critical twist that if I got a
The
review of
nuance.
a patient who's never been to the practice, that prompt isn't going to work for a fake review. That's going to be a different prompt. So it's fun.
It's almost like, let's take with that example with Nancy. It's almost like I wouldn't even want to review the report or try to remove the review. I would try to get it stay there so that I can play with the responses.
I would say it's better to get a negative review removed because a lot of people just judge you based on the number of stars. And some people will be ultra sensitive to a negative review. But you're absolutely right in that it is a full opportunity for you to communicate your values, your protocol, your philosophy and care. So you're basically not really talking to save Nancy as a patient. You're talking to everyone that Nancy is trying to influence against you. You are now using it as a branding opportunity to talk about your philosophy, your protocol, and what you do to ensure patient comfort before, during, and after treatment. Like, you're going to take it to the next level with that response. So I let all of my clients reach out to me directly. I always say, like, some people go fishing, some people golf. I love writing responses to negative reviews. It's like a hobby.
Wow.
So it's just fun. It's just fun.
And now you can do it at scale with OpenAI, so which is really fun.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
That's
I
so
still
cool.
individually oversee them because it's such a critical bit of communication that it should be approached individually.
Yeah. So what else in the AI sphere as far as the toolbox? Like, what else do you use? What else do you recommend people in the offices that they use?
I think it should be used as a refinement tool. So I've wrote this script, or I've written this email to this patient, but it feels like you can tell I'm mad at the patient, right? Like, you can tell I'm frustrated by this patient. So I might copy and paste what I've written and ask ChatGPT to write it in a more kind way. And what I've noticed is it defaults, you have to be careful with this because it defaults to apologies. And when you apologize in business, it implicates you as wrong.
Of
So I'm not
wrongdoing.
saying don't apologize if there's a miscommunication, but you have to be very careful, even from a legal standpoint, of how you address a difficult bit of communication with another person. So I take what I have and I ask it to write it in a way that's very professional and kind, right? Because you don't want emotion behind your writing. But then I go in and I go, does this implicate us as having done something wrong? Is this legally implicating that we did something wrong? And that's where that critical evaluation comes in. So it's like it goes you, then the robot, then you again, and then it can go. That's the process.
Right.
You can use it for
Right.
anything. You can use it
Wow.
for disputing that, an insurance company that isn't going to pay for something. You can put that into ChatGPT and say, what should my response be for this situation so that I can get this reimbursed by insurance? So there's all these different little things that you can use it for.
Yeah. Have you noticed any difference between, let's just say, ChatGPT or Google Gemini or any other tools? Or you primarily stick with ChatGPT?
I don't really want to get Google on my bad side. They're probably listening to us right now, but it's not there yet. So they've got a ways to go, in my opinion. But I mean, I primarily use ChatGPT. I don't use all the tools, but there are a few cool ones for video editing that I'll tell you guys about. There is one called Opus.pro, which is very powerful because you could just upload your video and it edits it and makes it more entertaining, and
Yeah.
it's very fast. So Opus is a really good tool. And then captions is coming a long way. It's almost creepy because you can upload your face, it scans your face, and then you could put in your script and it will be you talking. So it's creating your own videos. I haven't done that because I don't want my face scanned. Like that creeps me out. And there's a bit that just feels impersonal in the marketing. So again, I think you could take it too far and it could actually hurt your brand. But there are some fun tools out there. If you're looking for quantity, there's some fun tools.
Yeah. I'll throw the one that we like to use a lot is Canva. It's just
Oh, of course.
amazing how much you can do with simple, like $20 a month or whatever the cost. And it's like all of your presentations, they're all like AI driven that just generated half of your like flyer, if whatever you need. So
Yeah. Print marketing, custom print design. We still do some of that, but I see a lot more DIY going on than 3 years ago, for sure.
yeah, that's awesome. All right. So we covered AI stuff. And we're talking specifically about marketing and advertising because I don't want to get too tied up with practice management. There's a lot going on that side. You also mentioned the big G word. I'm curious what's going on with Google. So, like, we've heard even that AI written content on the blog is going to be flagged by Google and you're going to get downgraded by Google for using AI content. So, like, can you help us unravel some of this BS that we hear? Or maybe it's not
That's
a BS, maybe it
BS.
is truth.
That's BS. Because if you're customizing your prompts, each one is different. Your output is based on your input. And so, no, that's not really it. And if you're doing
Okay,
the
cool.
process that I've recommended, where you have your input and then you have the output of the robot, then you have your input again, that's also not going to happen because now you've tweaked and edited the content. So you've got that. So that I'm not at all worried about. But Google has changed their local service ads. So what they did is they rolled it out in dentistry not too long ago. I want to say like mid to late 2023. And by early 2024, they had removed the ability to contest leads. So the whole draw to local service ads was that it's a pay per lead, not pay per click platform. So people would spend a minimum investment, usually around $1,500, and they would only pay when someone called the practice if it was a relevant lead. So you used to be able to say, well, this is a pediatric phone call, but I don't treat kids, so this isn't a relevant lead. And Google would not charge you for the click. Well, they just completely went away with it. So they rolled it out in dentistry, got a bunch of people on board, and then got rid of the feature that made it lucrative. So I think that was a smooth move on their part to just get everybody engaged in a new form of advertising. It's very similar to pay per click. It's just a new section at the top. Still a lot of opportunity there, but that was a big switcheroo. And it was frustrating for a lot of people. And then Google also in early 2023, 2024, started making people prove that they have rights to certain business names. So we used to be able to keyword stuff on Google business listings very, very easily with no repercussions. And now you can report keyword stuffing. Google will come back to some people and say, show us proof that this is a business name that you're allowed to operate under. And in talking about like private practice, I love private practice. I market privately owned practices. They have a different set of rules for corporate than they do for privately owned practices. Because if you have 10 locations or more, you can keyword stuff without proving anything. If you have, under 10 locations, you have to prove your business name. So I'm over here coaching people on the loopholes and how do we get this keyword integration in your Google business profile so you can rank better? And it's a lot of fun, but you've got to really stay on your toes because Google is constantly evolving.
And when you say stay on your toes, not meaning anything like doing wrongfully and wait till they catch up and get you. It's more like, I'm pretty sure it's staying compliant with Google and just keeping track of whatever new rolls out that you need to go back and do it. But it feels like, especially with Google, it always felt to me that offices, knowing how busy dental practices are, especially talking about private practices, it's almost impossible for them to do on their own and just keep up with all that stuff. And I'm not advocating for them to have like a person on staff that only does marketing and social media. But what have you seen work successfully for private practice, maybe at a certain stage where it's a combination of an agency and somebody in-house?
So that is such a good question. I think that there's no replacement for custom real content on social media. So someone that can take pictures and someone that can connect, someone that can get into local Facebook groups and endorse the practice and the team and the protocol. Like that's what you should be insourcing. What you should be outsourcing is the highly technical side of marketing, ads management, targeting, landing page management, reporting, setting up. So paid ads and SEO, I feel like in 99% of cases should be outsourced if you have the right marketing company. That's the piece that's really hard to find because there are a lot of companies out there. There are not a lot of good companies out there. So it's like easy for me to sit here and say, yeah, outsource it. But there's someone out there that's hired 3, 4 companies and they've all been selling air. And so there's this great distrust in marketing agencies because of that experience, which is unfortunate, but not my problem. Like I've got great clients and, we're in a really good place. I do want to say too, there's something you said that I had to take a note on really quick because I wanted to come back to it. There's a difference between what Google will allow and what Google publishes as best practices. So you have this public information, best practice, right? And then you have what Google will allow, and they're not the same. And it's really hard to do SEO if you only operate on the published, very public best practices. Because if everyone is doing the same thing, everyone's going to get the same results in a sense.
So you have to kind of bend the rules a little bit and go towards what's allowed versus what's advertised by Google.
When you need to, you need to. So this is really hard for me because there's a lot of salespeople out there that will run audits on best practice. And so I'll have a client come back to me and say, well, you're not doing it the way Google published to do it. I'm like, you're first on Google. You're welcome. Like, it's very hard for me to be patient because these salespeople are they're sharks. Their whole job is I'm going to audit and discredit everything everyone else is doing so that I can get a paycheck. And it's very upsetting to the doctor thinking they're doing great. And then and it triggers them emotionally because to them, it's a report card, Tiger. It's a report card. And they're like, I'm an A+ student. What do you mean they're breaking the rules? And it's like, we didn't break any rules. We're creatively getting you and keeping you on top. And if first place isn't good enough for you, go ahead and try them out. I'll see you back in a year. Like, that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good point. I think it's just going to happen irrelevant of what other people are doing. Somebody else is going to try to break in. Again, we're blessed to be in a private practice space. I always say that there's 160,000 dental practices in the country. Let's just say DSO is like, let's give them a benefit of the doubt, 30%, which is 16, 32, let's say 48,000 practices. That still leaves us with about 120,000 practices in the country, right? So, and if you work with 1,000, you're already good. Like if you work with 10,000 offices, you're set. So that leaves you with to be able to compete with 12 other companies, right? Essentially. And most likely it's the one or two at the top and then the rest. So we're pretty lucky to be in the private practice space, I would say. What are your thoughts on Meta and being able to run ads on Meta? And what are your thoughts on most, like the demographics on Meta, like Instagram versus Facebook, and younger generation not being on Facebook as an app at all and advertising to them? Like, does any of this sound true or wrong? And what's your take on Meta in general?
So when it comes to Facebook and Instagram advertising, I'll talk advertising first. My biggest obstacle is that dentists have no idea what to expect. And the reason is the marketers are putting out false information. They're setting unrealistic expectations. And so there's a lot of noise in this space. And let me give you an example. Any dentist listening to this, if they are on Facebook, if they are on Instagram, as soon as they log in, they're getting bombarded with ads from marketing people saying, we can get you 20 new patients, we can get you 30 new patients, full arch cases, guaranteed. And it's all of this lead generation promises, which is really tough because if you think about how the user functions on social media, what are they doing when they go to social media? What are your patients doing? They're not actively searching for a dentist when they're watching videos or stalking ex-boyfriends or thinking about whatever. I mean, they're not there to find a dentist. So you're hitting them with these, what I call free, cheap now ads to try to drag them into your practice. And what kind of patient is that going to bring into your practice? It's going to be the patient looking for something free, cheap, and now, because that's how you advertise to them. So the hard part for me is re-educating people on the highest and best use of meta ads, which is the long game. It's brand building. And my competitors love to say, oh, she doesn't like meta ads. She doesn't, I love them. It's what I do for my own business, but there's a way to do it. If you're using it to leverage lead generation, it's very different than if you're using it to leverage long-term reputation building, branding. And I'd love to break this down into an example of when you should use, when you should use meta ads, what you should expect from them, and the different options, right? So let's say you want more Invisalign leads. Meta ads are great for, let's say it's September and you've got a little bit of a slowdown in your schedule and you want a little boost of revenue. So September is going to be your Invisalign special event where anyone who comes in for Invisalign this month only gets X amount of dollars off for the first 20 patients or something. That can be successful in lead generation. You can retarget people who have already been to your website, people who have already clicked on one of your Google ads. So you can get a really high relevancy in your audience, and it can be price driven, and it can help bridge the gap in revenue for that particular month. So it can be used in that circumstance for lead generation. But in most circumstances, it should be used to communicate something different or unique or special about the practice. So let's say I'm a fee-for-service practice. I'm out of network, and my ideal patient wants really quality care. It's not just about money. They want something different. You can't really market that with a flat, low-cost special. You need to get a video script that communicates how you're different. We might even write a script for a client about being an unrestricted provider and how great it is to have total flexibility and autonomy in creating individualized patient care plans, right? Or treatment plans, which is a different emotion to what I see from fee-for-service practices where they're apologetic about being out of network. Why not write the story, write the script yourself and connect with the right people, right? So meta video ads allow you to educate your community on how you're different, on why they should choose you, and they keep you top of mind in front of a highly relevant audience. So people who have already clicked through on your website, they're local. So all these pieces have to align for it to drive a return. The hardest part is they don't book right now because they weren't looking for you in that moment. So you have to look at the long-term ROI. You have to look at trends in your practice to value this level of marketing. And I say that it's a more mature type of marketing. Like the infant marketing is free, cheap now, drive leads. But the more mature long game marketing pairs those two methods for reputation building, quality, and a connection with the right type of patient, right? So I know I just lectured. I'll take a breath now.
This is perfect. This is perfect. Because using your example with Invisalign September, so based on what you said, is it right to assume that you shouldn't be doing Invisalign special in September using Meta, or you should be using special in September for Invisalign starting in January, so that you get people prepared and you tell the story why they should come to you in September, without trying to seem like a salesperson saying that we're slow in September and why don't we get your rear end in the chair because we're so slow that month. So, or neither of those two examples.
Neither. I would say started in August and you're going to see the revenue pick up in September. So you run it for August and you're going to see that revenue, that acceptance in September. You might even start at mid-July. Probably not going to run that type of campaign in January for production in September. But what you're saying is educate the community on your service offerings all year round so that when they have a need, you're top of mind and they think of you. That's the genius behind playing the long game. But the reason dentists can't play the long game, it's really, really hard for them, is because they're highly detail oriented, highly analytical, and they've been trained to match marketing method to calculated ROI. We're functioning on a straight line in marketing, and it's holding them back because marketing doesn't look like a straight line. Marketing looks like a very squiggly line. And people that hire me say, well, my friend uses you. Oh, and I listen to a few of your podcasts. Oh, and they have 7 different ways that they've encountered me before they actually pull the trigger and set up a call. And their marketing is no different than that, but they think that it is. They think that they can only operate on a straight line. So the dentists that are just super successful, like #1 dentist in the town, they've got their lead generation strategy going first so that cash flow is healthy. And then they layer on the long-term marketing so they can see this uptick in quality of new patient. So it's a combination of the two. It's not like one's good, one's bad. It's what are the goals of this particular practice? And then how do we set realistic expectations based on what marketing methods work best now? That's what I do.
So if I heard you correctly, you're saying that you really need to understand where you're at and what are your goals at the moment and pick the right tools to bring the lead generation to meet these goals, because there are different tools. Google is a different intent versus the Meta products. And not try to throw everything in the same spaghetti ball and just stack it differently, but have the right tools and have the right people.
And it's even more individualized than that. So yes, and we have to look at competition in your market. We have to look at your business name. We have to look at what's SEO going to do for you realistically. Do you have a competitive number of Google reviews? Are you a startup practice with no social proof? So do we need to build up that social proof before we start spending thousands in the advertising for lead generation? So there's all these moving parts required for setting realistic expectations. And the hard part is everyone wants a formula, a straight line. And that line is different.
Boy, not just in dentistry, just in general in life. We all want one simple answer, quick fix everything formula. Grace, before we go to the final question, I got just 2 more things to clarify. I'd like for you to talk about the ratings and reviews. specifically on Google or maybe Facebook, how big of a role they play, and then maybe touch on the blog if blog is still important, and then maybe some cadence like once a week, once a month, once every 2 weeks of blog posting and stuff like that. So can you cover these two things?
Yes. Reviews are very important. They are an aspect of
Okay.
social proof. Everyone's caught on to this now, though. So, how do you stand out with social proof when everybody's got hundreds or thousands of reviews? The answer is
Have
start
10,000
evolving.
reviews.
Yeah, sorry. What'd you
Have
say?
10,000 reviews.
10,000 reviews. Sure. Start evolving. Do you have video testimonials? And how can you have a stronger level of social proof than the people around you? And these video testimonials make fabulous retargeting meta ads because they reinforce from a third party's perspective how great you are. So I would say, yes, reviews are still important, and layer on those video testimonials because they're more real. Because remember, as quantity increases, everybody saturates that market with quantity. How do you differentiate? It's quality. So that's where we take it to the next level with quality. Does that answer it?
Yes, perfect. But it doesn't matter how many reviews you have, right? So if you
It
talk
does.
about quality,
It still matters.
like what's the good, okay, so give me the range. Like what is the good number of reviews for like a seasoned dental practice?
So I cannot answer that because if you are in certain markets, you need 1,000, and in certain markets, you need 100. So it's one more than whatever everyone else is doing.
Okay, that's a good point.
So
That's a
they
good point.
matter.
Good
Quantity
starting point. All right,
matters,
let's talk
quality
about
matters. Yeah.
let's talk about the blogs. Are they still relevant, and what's a good practice or best practice for dental practice to do their blogs?
I do blogs for my clients. I don't think it's the highest and best use of their time. People aren't sitting there waiting to read your next blog. You don't need to overthink it. It's an SEO strategy. Now, if you love to write, it's fun for you and you like to make announcements and you have them connected to a newsletter and it's a hobby for you, by all means, have fun. But 99.9% of dentists that I work with, they have much bigger fish to fry with their current responsibilities, and they're more than happy to have it handed off. When it comes to cadence, I would say whatever it takes to be competitive in your market. Blogging is one piece of the SEO pie. It's not the whole pie. It's the piece that the dentist can see, touch, feel, and smell. So it's one of the only tangible pieces of SEO that they have. So they might hold on to it, but it's a little, it's important, but it's definitely not everything. You could blog all the time and still not have good SEO if your website was built with a builder, or you don't have the right keyword integration, or you're outside of the red lines on Google. So I would love to give you like a magic number, but that would be a bit misleading in that, well, I can just do a blog every day and I'll be first, because it takes a lot more than that.
Right, right. That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, so let's move on to the second question that I wanted to ask within our framework. And so let's just say you and I are opening up a private practice today. We're about an existing one, so I don't know if it would matter. And we need something actionable today. What is the first thing or the first tool that you would rely on to get the new patient flow going?
Well, the first thing I would say is that's not actually the most important thing. So getting new patients in the door the second that we open, it would be great. It'd be a nice way to start things, but not if we're sacrificing thoughtful branding and brand position. I would say a lot of people do a cheap Fiverr tooth logo. And when I look at their website, subconsciously, I know that it's pushing people away from their practice because they don't understand that there's psychology behind branding. They just think it's, as long as they like it, that's all that matters. So there's a disconnect between the psychological first impression that they're putting out and what they actually stand for and who they actually are. And so their brand then goes on to work against them for many years because it makes them look cheap, but they want to be this high-end fee-for-service practice, but they have this cheap-looking tooth logo. Or they think it needs to be a literal representation of everything that they do. So I want people and stick figures, and I want to show all ages, and I don't discriminate. So I want to show all colors, and I want to show that we fix teeth. So put a tooth in there. Oh, but we believe in family and roots. So let's have a tree. Well, let's work a tooth into the tree so they know that we're dentists. They don't know what they don't know. And some of them are not coachable. So they hire us, but then they throw away our professional guidance. We're given this really horrible brand and logo. And if we don't like it, we're the bad guys because it reminds them of their child or something. They have some personal connection to it, right? So they overthink it because they have no level of expertise in this space. And then they end up doing something just horribly, terribly ugly and wrong. And then we're supposed to generate new patients with one message, but their branding is putting out a totally separate message. So my first thing would be recognize that you are not the expert in branding. Okay. And it's not just about what you like. It's not just your personal preference matters, but it's not the only thing that matters. So that's the first thing. Brand position, brand position, brand position, brand position. And so what do I mean by brand position? Okay. Well, imagine a Venn diagram. And in order to be successful, you have to live in between three segments. You have to fulfill three things. The first is there has to be a demand for what you're doing. So I see a lot of people struggle with like launching a sleep apnea focused practice, right? Why do they struggle? Well, because the general population doesn't think to go to a dentist for sleep apnea. They're going to go to a sleep center. So if you're going to position yourself that way, then you need to meet the general population with the demand. What's their demand? They need someone to help them with sleep, but they're not searching for a dentist, right? So if you're starting up this thing, then you need to meet them where they're at. There has to be a demand. What do they search? Sleep center. What do they search? Sleep apnea. What do they not search? Dentist. So that's the first thing is there has to be a demand and people have to be aware of the demand, right? The second thing is you have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy what you're doing. People will come to me and be like, well, I want to do cosmetics because they're highly profitable. I'm like, but do you enjoy those types of patients? Like, do you enjoy treating people who are going to be ultra picky about what their smile looks like? Well, you have to enjoy it. And the third thing is you have to be good at it. Okay. A webinar and a friend who places implants that you can call if you have questions doesn't qualify you to do full arch dentistry. Okay. So if you're going to chase the money of full arch dentistry, you better invest in the training because you could be destroying people's lives, their ability to eat. You got to ethically be very, very good at what you're doing if you're going to be doing it. So work under a specialist locally, take training, practice your skills. Don't come in and have me market you as the implant specialist when you haven't even taken a weekend course, right? So to recap those three things, there has to be a demand, there has to be an interest, you have to enjoy it, and you have to be good at it. Those three things align, you can move forward with the marketing. But a lot of people skip this brand positioning piece and they go right into lead generation. And it's an uphill battle for them because they built their house on sand, basically. So be foundational first. And to answer your question, okay, get into Facebook groups, network in Facebook groups, get shout outs from friends, family members, patients, and start inviting influential people into your practice. Roll out the red carpet because any marketing that you do from an agency is going to take 3 to 6 months to get off the ground. So you can't expect that marketing to be producing new patients day one unless you started it 3 to 6 months ago, which most people can't stomach putting that kind of money into marketing before they can book an appointment. So basically, don't expect your marketing to fulfill that. Maybe you can run a free cheap now campaign like I was talking about to just get the ball rolling and get some momentum. I'm not against it. It's just not the best long-term strategy. And network in Facebook groups, network with local businesses, meet influential people, and roll out the red carpet. That's the quickest way to get a little bit of momentum and have some cash flow early.
I have lots of questions here. So let's unwrap the first part. So brand position, brand message in the logo. let me try to steelman the case for the other point of view. Let's just say, Grace, I'm opening this practice, and I mean, I don't have money for a custom logo that's going to cost me $20,000 to design. That's why I'm just going to
I
go to
charge
Fiverr, hire somebody for
I
$100.
charge 1,400. I charge 1,400, but let's say you don't have the 1,400.
Yeah, but the first misconception is 20,000. That's what I hear. 10,000 for a logo, 20,000 for a logo.
It's what it
Like
should
that's what
cost.
literally people think about.
It's what it should
Yeah,
cost.
but that's what they think in their mind. Yeah,
Mhm.
but it's like for somebody to sit down, design a logo, brand message, brand position. Let's just say they didn't know the $1,400 option, and they're like, "I'm just gonna go on Fiverr, do it quick, whatever. I'll throw the tooth. I'll ask the OpenAI tools to give me the AI generated logo, and I'm kind of good to go because let me just try it. I don't know what it's gonna look like." And maybe on top of it, I'm going to be in network with all insurance companies, including Delta. And maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I just, whatever I got there, it's okay. I'll just go in, I'll at market, I'll build their experience in the practice. It doesn't matter what's going to be outside the building, all these logos and fancy stuff that you marketing people care about, but I'll make sure that they're super thrilled and happy in the practice. Maybe let's address that first. And I caught you right in the middle of drinking water,
No, you
which is
didn't.
great. So,
So
okay.
how would I respond to that?
Yes.
Like,
And what do
I
you
would
think
say,
of that?
great,
Like, is there any truth
go
to
ahead.
that?
Like, if someone asked me for my professional opinion, I'd provide it. But I've
Mm-hmm.
learned that people are not open to unsolicited advice. So if they don't want my advice,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to take it, right? But I will tell you what I do for my clients. If they hire me and money is tight as a startup and they're going to go with Fiverr, I'm not going to fight that battle because there's no profit margin in branding for me, none whatsoever. I basically do it as a charity. It's like you taking a Medicaid patient is me doing branding because I should be getting paid 10 to 20 grand. But I know in dentistry, I'm never going to get that, and that's fine. But I know it's the foundation of everything else that I do now is going to be connected to and dependent on you having a decent brand and an appropriate branding, right? So what I will do is I
Mm-hmm.
tell my clients, my feelings are not hurt if you get it done cheaper. I stopped having feelings in business many, many years ago. If you do this with Fiverr, no problem. Show it to me before you finalize it, and I'll be able to course correct. If this color is not going to be legible on signage, or this text is going to be too small when you put it on your building, or I will just give you my professional opinion. You can take it or leave it, and I'm not going to charge for that. Here's my cell phone number. Text me with what you have. And if you want my opinion, it's here for you. I do believe it's better done than perfect. And I understand that argument. The other thing that you didn't ask for that I'm going to share with you is you should be updating your logo every 3 to 7 years, because just like your house is going to go out of style, logo design goes out of style. And in dentistry, you don't want to look antiquated. You don't want to look like a has-been. You want to stay looking modern. So what you did 5 years ago, probably starting to need a little tweak, a little refresh. I've been in business since 2009. I've updated my logo 3 times. So that is just normal. Look at Wharton Salt logo. Look at it throughout the years. This is normal. This is normal branding. You should be updating.
Right.
So,
And don't expect to be a Coca-Cola that doesn't change their logo. Or I think they even changed too. I might
everyone
be wrong.
changes their ad. Even Coca-Cola changes.
Yeah. I think the second part that you said that kind of mind-boggling to me, I don't think that many people think about, is when you go into Facebook groups and you said invite influential people to your practice. When you say invite them to your practice in the physical space, like invite them to the practice, or in the digital space, where you create a Facebook group for your practice or something where they're invited and they're sharing their opinions.
I like to create Facebook groups. They're very hard to get momentum. They're very hard. They take a lot of time and energy to build, but you can piggyback existing Facebook groups. You can introduce yourself to the admins. You can see if they offer sponsorship in these very local groups. And you can offer something to the admins or the influential people in the group to get them to have experience with your practice so that it's more appropriate to be a part of that group. So you can network in that capacity, or of course you could start your own and put in the blood, sweat, and tears and time to grow it and manage it too.
Got it. I just realized we run out of time. Do I have 1 minute for
Yeah.
one question?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Email marketing. I don't see dental practices using email marketing as successful as it can be. Like for a lot of businesses like mine, for example, an email marketing is like a golden mine. Like that's the avenue you can control. It's not Google, it's not Facebook that changes the algorithm. If you get the real email addresses, you can email to them. And I don't see dental practices, A, harvesting those emails, and B, doing anything productive with those email addresses in any type of form. So just very quick, what's your take on this?
I think there's a reason for that. And I think that a lot of email marketing is now perceived as spam. And if you're building a brand and reputation of quality, I think that it can position you as desperate. And we don't want to look like salespeople in dentistry. So I think that there's a time and place for emails, like that intentional update to my patients on a new service offering or something. But I think email marketing is being gradually replaced with retargeting ads, where it's a little less intrusive. I've been to your website, so now I see your video ads. That feels less yucky than, oh, why are they in my inbox again? Spam, unsubscribe. I mean, if I want information, I'm going to reach out to you and get it. And I live by this. Like, I don't do a lot of email marketing, even for a marketing agency. I write custom follow-up emails when I meet someone, if I want to work with them. They get my cell phone number. They can text me. I can text them. Like, I think there's a place for it. There are drip campaigns with certain ads where if you're selling full arch dentistry, you might want to have a series of 5 messages about why us, right? But it's much better for me to get someone on a virtual consult right away. That's free, low risk, low cost, no chair time, no shows. The call to action to get in my schedule right now is stronger than me chasing you after you've clicked and trying to salvage that relationship. So I'm not a huge advocate of email marketing, and I think it's a space that went very much quantity over quality. And again, if you're going to do it with a video, do it with something very personalized, do it in a way where it stands out so it brings value. And that's where I'll leave it. If your email brings value to your audience, do it. If it doesn't, you're annoying.
The only challenge there is understanding if it brings value is very subjective, and it's really hard to be objective in that sense. But anyway, we run out of time. Grace, how do people find you if they want to contact you?
Thank you. They can set up a complimentary marketing planning session with me. There's a link to do that at identitydental.com.
Cool. And I'll include the link in the notes. So Grace, thanks so much for your time. I hope to have you again, not in 6 or 9 years, maybe sooner, to talk about some new stuff that are happening. So this is going to be awesome.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun today. Thank you for considering me.
Thank you, Grace.
See you soon.